Good afternoon, welcome to another video with a guy and his projects. Today we are yet again working on the Nissan 350Z. This is the DE engine, it's a 2005 automatic, and we are doing valve covers, valve cover gaskets, and all that good stuff today. I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not a mechanic, I'm not a professional, I have no professional experience or education in the vehicular world, so follow me at your own expense, your own risk, and all of that. What we're doing, I don't think it's going to be that difficult. Involved, yes, but not that difficult. I got a cameraman today, so this should go a little bit faster, which is sweet. We're using, for gasket maker, we're using the fast set, so it says have your parts assembled within 5 minutes. I'm hoping we can do that, or it's going to be a mess if we can't. But the idea is I want to be able to get this car running today. I don't want it to sit overnight and wait till tomorrow to be able to run it again. So we're going to use the fast setting gasket maker just on the front of the gasket covers. The intake covers. So we have everything we bought today. We bought from various vendors. I'll link everything I can, or equivalents, or whatever I can down below. Let's get started. First things first, you're going to have to take off your cross member support bar. This is 4 bolts on each side, technically 3 bolts and 1 nut on each side. You're just going to bust those loose, and then there's going to be a couple wire looms you got to bust. Mine are all dry rotted. They pretty much just all snapped, and I gave up and just didn't even give them a chance after the first couple. I just broke them off, as you'll see right here. However you pull them off, that's up to you. Like I said, I just gave up and snapped them off. You can zip tie them back in when you're done, but we got a long way to go before we're done. All right, so now that your brace is free, you can go ahead and remove it. And now we are getting to the point where we can get started. So you're going to pull your MAF sensor off, your mass airflow sensor. It's just held in there by a plastic clip and then a little flexible rubber thing to hold it in place. You're going to get rid of your air filter box as well as your duct work. However you want to do this, if you have a process you want to go by, go for it, or you can follow mine. I don't know what I'm doing, FYI. There's 1 bolt holding it to the intake plenum, and once you remove that, you can, it's really actually kind of tough to get this up, but enough struggle and it will pull up. Once you get the box out, you can take your ductwork off the throttle body, and you're still got 1 more hose connected on the bottom here. You got a little hose clamp, and then just the hose. You just pop it off like any other hose. As you'll see through this video, all of my hoses were really dry rotted, and almost every hose snapped rather than slid. I replaced a lot of hoses because they were completely dry rotted. I ended up taking the box off the ductwork just for more room, and you can see here I'm using a little hose pick. I'll try to link it below just to get it off because I couldn't twist it off, and that broke the hose, and pretty much broke all my hoses actually. So either way, it's off, so that's gone. Down here you have a plug underneath the throttle body. Go ahead and undo that. These are for your spark plugs. You're going to end up doing all of them. Why I decided to attack that one right now, I'm not sure. It just felt good at the time. There's another plug over here and a hose on the plenum. We're just going to take all these off. Essentially, that top cover of the plenum is coming off before anything else, so everything you have to get rid of to take that off, go for it. There's a couple of little supports holding the wire loom. Those will come off. Pretty much any time I could thread a bolt back where I took it from, I did, just so I don't lose them later. There's a little fuel line. Turns out you don't have to take it off. I learned that later. Oops. So don't follow my suit. Just leave it off. You're going to take all 6 of these bolts out. I'm not going to bore you with me unthreading them all the way. Same with all of your surrounding bolts. You got several. And you're just going to pop them all loose and then get them all out of your way. And like I said, there's quite a few in here. None of them were so tight. None of them are really all that tight. They're not supposed to be either, which is good.
when you go to put these back, follow your specifications in your service manual for torque specs. Here I'm just drawing out the plenum so that I have an idea of where all my bolts go. You'll see how this is handy right here. Just draw it out, and then you can shove your bolts in through the cardboard. This is a trick I've learned from other YouTubers, and it just keeps you honest as far as putting your bolts back in the right spot. Some are long, some are short, and to mix them up would be a pain in the arse. So this is just a good way of, one, marking where they came from, and two, it's going to help you to not lose them later. It's actually super helpful to have this when you have more than a couple bolts. And then I just drew out that little hose pass through, so I have a reference on my cardboard to where each bolt goes. You can see I ended up drawing in the throttle body and the oil filler cap as well. And there they are. Now you're not going to lose them, hopefully. Alright, at this point we can take the cover of the plenum off. It just slides right up. You might have to wiggle it if it's been there for a while, which mine was, of course, there for a long while. I did learn that there is another hose underneath the throttle body. I believe this is a coolant hose, and it feeds up into the throttle body. While you have this off, by the way, it'd be a good time to clean that throttle body if you so desire. The coolant line runs down here. I ended up disconnecting it down here because it was easier access. And as you'll see, I spilled quite a bit of coolant when I pull this off. Not a lot, just what was in the hose. I re-put the hose on and then grabbed a vacuum cap just to keep dirt from falling into that hole later. Alright, so now that that's disconnected, you would like to think that you're well on your way to success, and you can pull your hoses out however you're going to do that. And apparently there's another hose. There's hoses and wires everywhere. I used to be super nervous and scared that I would never know how to put these hoses back together. I'd mix them up, put them in the wrong spot. Same with electrical. As I've done this more and more, my confidence has grown, and I really don't worry about it a whole lot anymore. Be that good or bad, I don't know. That's just where I'm at. I guess I'm just trying to tell you to have confidence in yourself and go for it. This is our PCV hose. Like I said, everything was super crusted from the heat and age, and I could not even twist this to break the seal to pull it off. It was solid, like it was not a hose anymore. It was like PVC. It ended up shattering on me just like every other hose I tried to take off, and you can see it just split right there. So I kind of gave up even trying to save it, and we're just going to break it off now. And a hose should not do that. That tells me, one, this was in bad shape. Two, it's a good thing it's getting replaced. Alright, up here, this is a little fuel line. This is attached to the bottom of the plenum, not the top. We removed that as well. Again, you can thread your bolts back into this bracket. I highly recommend you do that because there's a lot of bolts you're taking off in this project. Alright, down here at the very back of the lower plenum, there is a nut on a stud. You're going to take the nut off, and the same setup up front in the front of the plenum by the front bumper. There's one more nut on a stud. Take that off as well. And then all 6 of these bolts with this, I don't even know what it's called, is being held down. Those got to come out, as well as that bolt on that bracket there. At this point, you should be free to go ahead and pull this up. I ended up finding that if I pulled the back up first, I was able to slide it out. And there we go. We are practically to the valve covers. And look at all that carbon buildup, yay. Alright, so these are your valve covers, these black things on the left with your spark plug boots and coils. We're going to go ahead and take off a couple more brackets holding this wire loom in. The idea is this wire loom is going to be in our way all the way around for both valve covers, so pretty much anything that is attached to it has to go. You can break them off, push them off, whatever you want to do. This corner by the passenger seat was the worst for access. It was really hard to get everything off, and it was really hard to put it back in. Everything else was fairly straightforward and easy. Just find wherever the wire loom is connected and disconnect it. Put your bolts back where you can so you remember where they went. And yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking like I mentioned, but eventually you'll just get there. That's your VVT solenoid. I think it's VVT. We unplugged that. This wire right here goes down to your air or your AC compressor. That's got to come out as well. You got to reach down there. Don't forget to turn it back on or plug it back in. Lots of electrical, guys, but nothing very complicated. Coming on over here, we got a couple more places where this loom is held in place by random little bolts and nuts and some zip ties. And then once we get that loose, we're going to go ahead and remove our coils, ignition coils, spark plug boots, or whatever you want to call them. I like to just bust things loose before I take the nut all the way out, just so I know if I'm going to have problems, I don't have to put something back later. And go ahead and take all 3 of those out on the passenger side. You can either do everything at once, go through and do the driver's side as well. I decided to do one side at a time at this point. There's your wiring loom, pull it out of the way. And now you have all 3 of your spark plug boots. The center one actually broke in half on me, which was kind of annoying, but this is just a, I don't know what you want to call it, but it essentially just evens the pressure out between the 2 cylinders, or allows air to flow between the 2 cylinder heads, valve covers, whatever you want to call them. They are valve covers. And then as you can see, that hose also broke. But once you get that off, you can go ahead and unbolt your valve cover. This is the passenger side. We're going to do the passenger side the whole time until we switch. We're not going to bounce back and forth. You've got a few bolts up top, a few bolts in the bottom, and then one at the front and one at the rear. If you are in doubt of where to find these bolts, look at your new covers. You should have the same exact bolt holes, and that'll give you an idea of where to look. So we're just going to go ahead and bust all of them loose. And in here was really kind of difficult to not lose bolts. We dropped a couple. I ended up using a magnet, a flexible handled magnet, and it helped quite a bit, but it's still a pain in the butt. Once you get all the bolts loose, you're going to have to put pressure on this. It's been sealed onto that for a while, so it's not really glued on. I mean, it is at the very front, but it's been heated up and bolted together for so long it was really hard to get it off. I will say getting rid of that VVT solenoid would make this a lot easier. I did not at first. I ended up removing it later, and I don't think I got that on camera. I think I did on the driver's side. But we bent this fuel rail up and out of the way a little bit. Be very careful, you can kink it pretty easily. And then I was able to slide the cover back towards the cabin, up and then over. If you get rid of that VVT solenoid, which I think from memory serves, it's just 3 more little bolts, it'll be very easy to get out. And it's not really difficult at all to remove that. In fact, if I remember right, I don't think I saw it on camera a minute ago. We had to pull the VVT off to unplug the stupid harness anyway, so just leave it off when you do that. This is the hard side. The driver's side was much easier for me anyhow. You can see that gasket there, and the valve cover is off. And there is your inside. You can see that center second half of the coil, ignition coil, sitting in there. We pulled out. As far as the gasket maker, we just did the front 2 corners, that side, the upper, and then the lower. Same amount of gasket maker and the same thing. Don't go crazy. In fact, I ended up putting way too much on there, just because I opened the can and it kind of burped out. But not a big deal. So you're gonna. A lot of people come up with all kinds of weird ideas to hold that gasket to the valve cover while you put it in there. Some people use fishing lines, some people glue it in. I use some gaskets and valve covers from Z1 Motorsports, and once you put the gasket into the valve cover, it ain't coming out easily of its own accord. It was stuck in there with no artificial glue, no fish line, no blue painter's tape. I had zero issues on either valve cover. Once you smush it into the valve cover valley, it was there, no issues. I don't understand why other people are having issues unless there's other styles of gaskets and valve covers that just don't fit as good. So I had no issues. I would highly recommend based off of that alone. We're just going to put all of our bolts back in, and I just did finger tight at first. Get them all finger tight, and then use your service manual. I'm not going to post a screenshot because I don't know if I'm allowed to without getting copyrighted on YouTube, but pay your $20, get a service manual. It has a diagram with torque specs, and it's going to tell you exactly which bolt to do first, second, third, fourth, blah blah blah. I believe it's been almost 2 months since I filmed this. I want to say, again, don't quote me, look up your service manual, that it had us torque them down to 17 inch-pounds each, starting from the center and working your way out. And then after you had them all at 17, we went back, and I want to say it was 70 inch-pounds each. Again, that's been a couple months, but that's what's on my mind right now. So I think that's accurate, but look it up. A service manual will be well worth your money. All right, so now we are on to the other side. That's your VVT. I wish I could remember the correct term. I'm calling it VVT. Solenoid. I believe it reads your timing chain as it goes by, but pull it out, get that out of your way. Again, same exact bolts on this side that are on the passenger. Once you get them all out, you should be able to bust that loose, and again, remove it. Like I said, driver's side was much easier and more enjoyable than the passenger side. All right, here you can see I'm putting the gasket maker on. Again, just the front two corners. No, I did not go all the way across. It's been about 8,000 miles since I did this, and I have 0 oil leaks, okay? You don't need to go overboard. You don't want to cake it on. If you ever have to, keep in mind, if you ever have to pull this apart, you got to clean that as well. I did clean the old gasket that was on there, so again, like I said, no issues holding the gasket in place. It was stuck on. As soon as we put it in place on the valve cover, it did not come back off. So yes, you could pull it off, but just by its own means, it held in very well. So I was very happy with that. Again, just like passenger side, you're just going to get it in place, make sure your gasket stayed in place, and then bolt it down according to the service manual. And they will have you do, starting in the center, work your way out. Like I said, I think it was 17 inch-pounds, and then once you get them all at 17, you go back and do 70 inch-pounds. Again, that's from memory from a few months ago. But using a magnet to get these bolts started so we didn't drop them and lose them, that was actually very helpful. We dropped a lot of bolts before we started using that magnet thing just to get them in the holes. There's not much room to work on these cars, and it was a pain in the arse. Anywho, we are torquing them down to spec. We went all the way around just like the service manual asked, and again, I have no leaks. But again, I am not a mechanic. Copy me at your own risk. Alright, so that was our second round. The VVT solenoid's going back on, and it's just 3 little bolts right there. Not a big deal. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Get them on. You guys, believe it or not, we're almost done. This is a very involved job. It took about half a day with the camera. I want to say we probably got started at 6 a.m. and we probably spent a good 6 hours doing this. So it's a good half a day job. I've never done it before though. It looks intimidating, feels intimidating, but it's not that bad. We just put our spark plug boots back on, or your ignition coils, whatever you want to call them. We added a little bit more grease because they were completely dried out. I'll probably be doing a video on how to do your spark plugs here soon. I didn't pull them out to check right here, just based off of how dry the boots were. I'm gonna guess it's been a while since they've been replaced. So stay tuned for that. Check out my playlist. It'll be coming. Alright, so we're tightening down the ignition coils. We're pulling the oil fill cap off and putting on this silicone oil ring catcher, whatever you want to call it, to catch any oil when you're filling it up. And we have this hose back here. Every hose I replaced with silicone. That's not necessary, but I did anyway. I was replacing them, might as well spend a couple extra dollars and get some that I don't have to worry about too soon. This one goes on here. All of the hoses I bought from Z1 Motorsports. I'll link them down below. I am not an affiliate at this time, but they'll be down there for you. And then the PCV valve. I did not put the hose clamp on here at this point. I was just putting the hose in place so I didn't forget to put it in later. I've done that before and it's really annoying actually. So alright, so ignition coils on the passenger side are going in, and we are well on our way to getting back up and on the road. And here we go, getting them all tightened down. Boop. Alright, so now we have this gasket for right here. Again, I believe I bought that off of Z1 Motorsports. Some of the stuff came off Amazon, some was Z1, and I think I got 1 or 2 pieces off eBay. But anywho, this is actually a 2-piece gasket. If you've never seen that before, it's good to know before you think yours is broken. Again, I did not put a hose clamp on that yet. I just wanted to get it in place so I didn't forget to put it there later. Then we're back to your plenum. This hose I could not get off, and it finally just snapped just like every other hose. And the only way I could get this off of the tube was to essentially break it. So I broke it, got it off, and moved on with life. Alright, and I think that's like the 3rd time I've shown putting that hose on for some reason, but this time we're actually putting the hose clamp on. Now we're using worm gears because I hate the clamping type. The clamping type is technically more secure because it's a more even pressure, but worm gear is so much easier to work with that sometimes it's worth it. So your bottom part of the plenum, you're going to go ahead and drop on the 2 studs that are on the front and rear. If you'll remember those, I ended up having to pop this bracket and twist it out of the way. Coming out, it came out just fine with this in place, but it didn't have any desire to go back in, so sometimes it's funny like that. Okay, that's in place. You're going to grab your 2 nuts. You got 1 nut in the front and 1 nut in the rear. Again, buy a service manual. It'll have all the proper torque specs in there. You don't want to over tighten. Here is our brand new gasket that's going to go in place of the old one. Just gonna lay it in place nice and pretty and bolt it back down. Again, torque specs in your service manual, and as well as rotation of which way to tighten them, starting center and working your way out. I'm gonna put this hose on for the PCV valve and slide it in, tighten down that worm gear that we're using. Worm gear, hose clamp, worm gear, whatever it is. And then we're going to put one in the bottom as well. So the only problem with using the worm gear type on the bottom was it was really hard to get a screwdriver down there. And I almost put the clamping one back on until I found my little stubby screwdriver. And that works for now. I'll hate myself later, but for now it works. Alright, so now this fuel portion, if you took the hose off like I did, don't forget to put it back on. You didn't need to take it off. But you know, hey. I'm making this up as I go. As I mentioned, I don't know what I'm doing. So you're going to tighten this back down. The bracket goes underneath the plenum, not on top, obviously. And we're going to tighten this bracket down as well, put it back in place. And we're just working our way back up. The whole time cross our fingers, hoping that it starts when we're done. Alright, upper plenum cover. intake cover, whatever you want to call it, can go on. There's two ways to do this. You can either put this in place and then try to get that coolant hose back on, or you can flip it up on its side and try and get the coolant hose on. I went this route. It was a pain in the butt, and I'm sure it would have been a pain in the butt the other way too, but this is the way we went. Okay, so this other hose that goes down to your coolant line we found earlier does need to feed underneath the wire loom. It will not reach the other way, or not for me anyhow. Put your plenum back on. And then, so this was a pain in the butt getting this hose back on. I don't think you can see anything right now. If you can, cool. If not, just know there's a nipple and a hose and a clamp, and they all need to fit together. And good luck. Alright, once you do get that, however, you can go ahead and use your fancy little diagram you put together, put all your bolts back in the proper spots. And I hope you're not getting seasick right now, but you're going to put all these down. Again, buy a service manual. It'll tell you your torque specs. It'll tell you your torque pattern. Go by that. There's other YouTubers that have also put that in their videos, but do as you wish. My advice would be to get a service manual. It's a lot easier to look at a page than keep having to rewind a video too. So, all right, now your ductwork can go back in. Don't forget to put that hose back on. Slap it back on the throttle body. You're going to tighten it down, and then you are going to manhandle that air box back in place. The air box will go in. It's a pain in the butt, but it will go in. Just be patient, and you'll get it. Don't forget to tighten up your clamps on it. You got the one up by the throttle body, and then the one connecting the box to the ductwork. Then you got a bolt on the right side, a bolt on the plenum, and you're looking pretty good, guys. Plug in your mass airflow sensor, don't forget that, or you'll have a check engine light. Drop in a new filter, and bada bing, bada boom. Alright, you're just going to put your new cross brace on. Again, torque specs in a service manual. Guys, if you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. If this video helped you, subscribe, thumbs up. Leave a comment down below of other projects you got going on, projects when you've done this. If you do this job and you find my video helpful, please let me know. I like to know that I'm helping people out. I know I don't capture every little bolt, every little nut in this video because it's already a half hour long video. Can't please everybody, I understand that, but if I helped you, let me know. Subscribe, thumbs up, and don't forget to share. Again, I will link all these parts that I used down below. A couple of these we didn't end up using. I bought them for just in case. And, it kind of is what it is. You can return them or keep them for the next project. Guys, have yourself a good weekend. We'll see you next time.